Thank you and welcome to the Access Pacific chapter of the Access User Groups. Tonight, our presentation will be John Colby on leveraging ChatGPT for incremental development for Microsoft Access. An original title we had was Revising Your Way to Success. And I think that's a pretty good explanation of how I see how it's going to work. Before we jump into it, I just want to cover a couple of things on the Access news front. I hope you'll forgive me. I've not been feeling well all day, and I think my voice is going to give out really quickly. So I'm going to keep this short. The Access roadmap has been updated. We're seeing things now scheduled for September that were earlier. Earlier, they were scheduled for like July and August. There was some urgent work done on security across all of the Office teams earlier this year, and it put them back a couple of months, but they're back at work. And there was a presentation in the Access Europe group yesterday. Colin Riddington discussed his take on all these new enhancements to the forms and to the charts. And so when that video comes out, if you check YouTube, you'll see his take. He's much closer to the process than I am. Access Forever, that's a group that I participate in. We have started a series that is called Showcases, and we solicit anyone who has a working Access application that you would like to showcase to other developers. Please let us know. You can find a submission form on the site. I should have put the submission form link rather than the general showcase link, but if you go there, you'll be able to find it. Let us know what your application does, and one of us will write it up and get it publicized on the Access Forever website. And you can see, I think we've got now 4 different showcases that we've published so far. It's kind of interesting. The Discord server for Access. This has become much more relevant than it was recently. I put the invite link to the Discord server here, and I also put it in the chat earlier, and I'll put it again in the chat after I turn the time over to John. We would like you to join us there. We have been slowly growing over the last month, and we're beginning to see more conversations, discussions over Access there. And real quick recap of what the Access user groups in general are doing. I checked today, Access Italia. I think they're planning to resume meetings in September. They've been off for the summer. Access Lunchtime. Maria Barnes is going to reprise her presentation on using the Microsoft Graph API. That has a lot to do with the upcoming transition from classic Outlook to new Outlook. So that's probably worth finding out more about. Access Australia is going to continue an ongoing project with the relationship layout add-in. Kent, do you want to fill us in on what's going on there?
Oh, well, I'm just going to give a quick demo on it, and then everyone can put in their 2 bobs worth. And but I'll explain what I use it for and why I put it together. And then we've been finding everybody else wants to use it for all sorts of different things. So,
okay, great. And I got the dates right, correct?
yes, it's next Friday.
It's not the 22nd, it's next week?
Yes. Isn't that the third? Well, it's the third Friday for me,
Okay, well,
I think. Just check. Yeah, the 15th.
The 15th. Okay, I did get the date wrong. So it's the 15th.
Yep.
All right. Beg your pardon. Access Europe's September meeting will be a revisit to the version control by Adam Waller. I don't know what's happening with the SQL Server and Access Beginners, whether they're going to resume in September or not. I know that Juan has launched a new series of presentations on AI that meet earlier in there was a session earlier today on AI and why businesses should be looking at it as an adjunct to their development. And in September, our next meeting will be Greg Regan. Greg Regan, he's going to talk about an updated version of the control text that he previously showed us. And tomorrow, there is another Access user group which meets. They're out of the San Francisco Bay. They've been around forever. There are only a small number of people who meet regularly in that group, but several of us have started to drop in on their meetings. They're always very informal, generally not a presentation, more of a conversation, but it's a good group of people to just spend an hour with if you have time on Friday. And I'll put the link in chat after my slideshow here. So is there anything else going on in the Access world that anybody knows about, be interested in following up on sharing with us?
Well, I'll just point out that so far this year I've upgraded about half a dozen of my clients to 64-bit, and it's all going really, really well, as opposed to a year ago where I was having errors and crashes, but now it's all seems pretty good. So the Access team have obviously done something behind the scenes to stabilize it all.
Sounds great.
Peter Cole's database of APIs has been very helpful in the process.
Oh, yeah.
So
Does he,
anyone who's been a bit hesitant,
does he make that available or is it?
yeah, it's on his website.
Okay, it's on his website. All right. Can you find the link and put it in the chat or
Mm,
is that asking too much at this point?
I'll give it a try.
Okay. So back to our presentation. I have been using AI fairly often over the last 2 or 3 months. Some of you know I've been working on a project to convert the Northwind developers template to Power Apps with a SQL Server backend. And I've been relying heavily on, I primarily use Claude rather than ChatGPT. At the risk of anthropomorphizing, I like the way Claude thinks more than I like the way ChatGPT thinks. We're more compatible, and so I rely on it more often. But having gone through that process, I'm really excited to have John share with us his experiences in leveraging ChatGPT. So I will stop sharing. If you want to start, away we go. Thank you, John. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, so yes, my name is John Colby. I have been a consultant for 30 years, 20 of which was developing in Access for small businesses. And I did probably 30-ish databases for all kinds of little businesses all over the United States and down in Mexico. I am an VBA developer, database consultant, and Access power user, but I no longer develop in Access. And so recently, I was trying to put a book together to talk about VBA and classes and events and all that kind of stuff. And I was well into it, and I discovered ChatGPT. I don't know how exactly, by accident, but it occurred to me to have ChatGPT help me as an editor. I think that's kind of the way I discovered it, because trying to get the book edited turned out to be hard. So anyway, I had Chat go through it and make recommendations, minor changes, pretty major, you should do this to organize it. And I did, and it made a lot of sense to me to reorganize that way. So I'm doing that. And then I wanted to build some tables in code, using code, and put the code in the book so that the readers of the book could do the code, use the code to build tables that they were going to use inside the book. And Chat basically built the whole thing for me. It was fascinating. I worked with Chat for, I'm going to say, a week, writing this code, including testing it, and I mean, just pretty in-depth stuff. And Chat did everything, all of the coding. I just talked to Chat and said, I want to do this. And it goes, oh, okay. And it started doing all this stuff for me. And so when I saw that, and I actually took that VBA code for building those tables, it's now up on my, what the hell's it called? Anyway, it's out there in the public domain. But when I saw how powerful it was or could be, I remembered an old application that I wanted to develop, which was for buying and selling stocks, downloading information off the stock exchange and analyzing it and doing all that kind of stuff. I had tried to do that in the past, and I had to learn Python to do that. I I've been programming forever, but I didn't know Python. And after 3 or 4 months of trying to do this stuff in Python and learn Python, I just gave up because it was nothing but error screens and this wasn't installed and you need to download this, that kind of stuff. Never got anywhere with it. So when I'm working with Chat and he's helping me write this code in VBA, this thing just popped into mind. Oh, I should talk to, with Chat and try and get that thing happening. Well, 3.5 weeks later, I have an application written in Python that is way powerful. I've got tables in SQL Server doing analysis. Um, I'm about to do an AI model with neural networks and all that stuff. That's the next step, really. 3 weeks. I didn't write any of the code. I just talked to Chat, said, this is what I'm trying to do. And Chat goes, oh yeah, that's this, and this, and this. And he starts telling me, well, we could do this and we could do this. And he starts writing the code for me. It was just amazing. In 3 weeks, it would have taken me a year or 2 or 3 to learn enough about Python coding to do that stuff myself. That's kind of where I am now. For tonight, I wanted to create an Access add-in. One of the things that I did out in SQL Server was built a couple of stored procedures, about 5 stored procedures, to add properties, purpose properties, to my tables, fields, indexes, stored procedures, views, all that stuff. I built these stored procedures. Well, Chat built them. I didn't do any of this. Chat built these things for me. I told him, I want to document this stuff. I need to get a purpose property in the properties collection for these things so that I can pull up information about the tables and stuff, and it'll show me right down the side, here's what the purpose of this thing is. So it kind of self-documents itself. Yeah, okay. So anyway, didn't write any of it. But then I remembered I started doing that purpose thing because a couple of sessions ago, we had this conversation about adding properties to objects in Access. And here I was adding a purpose, just one property, but it was a purpose property to all these things so that I could document what I was doing out there in SQL Server. And it works. It works great. It was very fast to implement. And now, working with Chat, I will tell Chat, oh, look, I need a view that shows me this. And he goes, oh, okay, well, here's the SQL. And I save it. And he goes, okay, and now here's the properties. Here's your table, and here's 7 fields in the table, and here's properties using those stored procedures to document what the table is, what all these fields are, and he just writes all this code, and I paste it into a query window in SQL Server, execute it, and boom, I've got these properties all done on those objects out in SQL Server. I mean, how cool is that? And I didn't write any of it. It was my idea. I told him what I wanted. He did it. And now every time I do anything out there, if I make a view, he creates the view for me most of the time. And it's a, create view first so that it's stored. And then here's the properties for it, and the purpose property. And boom, all at once. So anyway, I looked at that and said, well, let's use that as a demo for the Access Users group where I will have chat write an add-in that you can add into any of your Access databases that will have a little form. The add-in will pop up a form and it will say, in fact, I'll show it to you. I haven't got it. I haven't got it allowing me to install it as an add-in. I'm getting you don't have permissions or something like that. But if I did, I could actually do this stuff right now, some of it, and I'll show it to you. It's this guy right here. It's very simple, obviously, right now, but basically I just say, okay, for a form, it says, okay, form purpose, and this is the purpose that I wrote for this thing. And so the eye color, that's the purpose I wrote for this thing. And if I want to add some more stuff and save it, and save it, and then I go over to this one, and then I come back to this one, you can see that it saved whatever it was that I added to that. And this is a custom purpose property on this form. I've got a report. I was working on this today. I did or chat did most of this stuff for me in 4 hours, 5 hours today. It's not it's not a lot of stuff, but as you can see, yeah, it's working. So I wanted to build this thing and have it ready to drop in as an add-in. And I've got the USysReg info table, which, by the way, chat told me, okay, well, these are the keys and all the stuff that has to go out in the registry to make this an add-in. It wrote all this stuff. In fact, hang on a second, Alt F11, right up here at the top. This is the code that it wrote to add stuff into that table, the USysReg table. All of this stuff was written by this code. Chat wrote this code. I told him, hey, I've got to do this thing. I've got to create this USysReg table. It goes, yes, you're right. You have to do that. And you have to have this, and this. And here's a function that'll build your table. It created a function for me that would build the table and another function that would update the values in the table in 30 seconds. Boom, it was done with that stuff. Now, I don't know if you ever tried to add this kind of stuff into the registry before, but I went out and looked at a YouTube video about this by one of our members. What's her name? I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names. But anyway, she comes to this meeting sometimes, and she did this. She did a whole YouTube video. Well, yeah, and she showed all this stuff, and I'm stopping the video and I'm trying to copy the stuff out of the video. And then I talked to Chatney, and 30 seconds later, I had the table and this stuff in the table, ready to be dumped into the registry when it gets registered as a an add-in. 30 seconds. That's essentially the gist of my presentation tonight. I'm writing this add-in. Somebody here does this stuff already.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff just
Yep.
wrote a tool to help you do that for
Yeah.
you. And then
Yeah.
I just put a link in the chat for a how-to page if you want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, I hate to like harp on terminology here, but it's not called the usus reg table. It's called the usus reg info table, which you like painstakingly know if you have to do it yourself.
Well, there's the usis reg info table. And to be quite honest with you, no, I don't want to know how to do it myself. That's the whole point of this, actually. The whole point of tonight is, why would I spend hours and hours watching YouTube videos and copying stuff off the screen when I can just say to chat, hey, I got to do this thing. And it goes, oh yeah. And 30 seconds later, he built the table for me with a function, and he built all of this stuff. Now I haven't actually put it into the registry yet, so I don't know that it's correct, but looks pretty good. 30 seconds. So why would I spend hours watching YouTube videos when I can just talk to chat and say, hey, I need to do this? And it goes, yeah, okay, here.
I have to ask, is that the main question?
Well, my point is, I coded and I designed forms and I designed reports and I went into clients and did business analysis, sat on one side of the desk and talked to them, what kind of data do you need and what does your tables need to look like and all that kind of stuff. I did that for 20 years, right? But then I had to go sit down and start building forms and start building queries and start building tables and start doing all that stuff. And now I don't do any of that. With this Python application, I didn't do any of that stuff. What I did was, in my head, I knew I wanted to do this, and I talked to Chat, and Chat did it for me. It's like I've got this super powerful coding guy sitting next to me, and I can just say, hey, I need to get this done. And he goes, okay, here.
Okay, so maybe I didn't say that the way I meant. How, how do you know that coding guy next to you is telling you the truth?
You don't. You don't. And you got to be the adult in the room with that.
Testing.
What's that?
Well, test to see if it works.
Well, exactly right. You got to test and see if it works. And when it doesn't work, you got to rein him in sometimes because, just as an example, I ran out of room on my disk and I wanted to move my log drive off of disk D onto disk E. And he said, okay, just do this. And I did that. And all of a sudden my database is broken. I don't have a log file anymore. And we went round and round, and he kept doing the exact same things. Okay, well, you're going to do this. And I said, yeah, but I just did this. You just told me to do this 5 minutes ago. And I'm talking to him like that. Yeah, but you just told me to do this. Well, just do, so you got to be the adult in the room. And at some point, you got to go, no, this isn't working. Let's try something else. So it's going to take over your job and write all your code for you at this point is not true. But I have an application running in Python and I don't write Python. And I've got workers that are executing this code that's pulling data off of the New York Stock Exchange and spreading it out and doing this and doing that. And I'm telling him what I want it to look like. And he's doing it. And I'm going, yep, that's what I want it to look like. And I didn't write a line of code. I talk to it.
Okay. I guess I'm uneasy about it in one sense, and I'm probably being more negative than I wanted to. But at some point, you have to be able to recognize, either through testing or through just code examination, that this is hallucination, this is valid, this is okay, but there's maybe a better way to do it. I mean, what's going
And
to happen?
yes, and that's why I said you have to be the adult in the room because, as an example, I had Python scripts, and I'm saying, okay, but I want try catch blocks around every time it talks to SQL Server. I want to try catch block, and it says okay, and it goes out and it hands me back a file, and the file doesn't work, and I go inside, and man, the file is scrambled. So I look at it and go, I spent an hour with chat trying to get try catch blocks. That's all I was trying to do is get him to put try catch blocks around it. But I've got 30 or 40 of these Python files out there that are doing various SQL Server stuff. So I wanted to figure out how to prompt him and how to get him to do that for me so that I didn't have to open 30 or 40 Python files. I could do that. And in the end, that's what I did. I said, well, I'm just not getting try catch blocks around this stuff. So I'm going to put it in myself. And I did. Okay.
So
And I
that's what I
just
was going to
said,
say. That's one of the things. That's kind of what this is, in my opinion. You're trying to write it from scratch, but if you're already a coder, this can be a huge help in speeding you up at getting things done. Like, I need a function that does this. And then you can just insert that into your application and fix the little bits of code that you want to change, right?
right, right. And the other thing to understand is that I don't write Python code. You know, I can look at I'm a programmer. I've been a programmer for 20 years, so I know what this stuff is and I look at it and go and it gives me an error message, Python. Well, there's an indent problem and it tells me the line number. That's the nice part about PyCharm. And so I go to that and oh sure, tab that line over and boom, it works. You know, but but I handed that same file back to chat and said it's not working. And it went in and did something, went in and did something else, never fixed that. And all it was a silly needed to tab over this block because Python has to have things lined up a certain way. So that's why I said it's not going to do all of your coding for you, at least at this point in time because you have to be the adult in the room. You got to look at it eventually and go, you know what? Trying to get chat to do this isn't working. So I'm going to go in and fix this myself. But I was fixing a 200 line Python script that I wouldn't have written. I wouldn't have known how to write it. But I can look at it and go, well, I can read down through it and understand what he's doing and see. And it tells me, the debugger tells me on line X is where your problem is. I go to line X and I look at it and go, oh, okay. There's a semicolon at the end of the line that got yanked down to the next line. That was one of the problems. And I just yanked the semicolon back up to the end of the line and boom, it compiled, you know. But chat, I gave that back to him and he never found it. Never did find it. I found it.
How many times do you go through that iterative cycle to get a result I mean, do you see a pattern like 3 times to get it right or 2 times or is there a predictable pattern?
No, there isn't a predictable pattern. The thing to know is that you'll give chat literally when there's an error, you can cut and paste the error and the error and the screen well in PyCharm anyway, the screen will have red squigglies under things that it doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And so you can cut and paste it and it'll look at those red squigglies and it understands, oh, that red squiggly means something. And it will come back and start talking to me. Oh, that means it's one of its favorite phrases. Oh, it's crystal clear now, Oh, it's crystal clear now and it'll do something and it'll work or it won't, So, uh, other things. It only kind of like only fixes the first one. and then the next one will pop up an error message, and you go back in and you cut and paste that, but it's still quicker. It wrote the entire damn thing, and I cut and paste the red squiggly from the first, and it fixes that, and then I do the second one, then I do the third one, and boom, it's working.
Yeah.
So
So I've had a similar experience with what I've been doing. I get code back that is hallucinated code, and when, as soon as I paste it into the formula bar, the red squigglies pop up, and it's not even going to compile. So you don't even get to testing before you know that you've got an error.
right.
And about half of the time, it's made up new keywords that don't exist.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that I did, let me see if I can find it here real quick.
Actually, I just want to say one quick thing too, is basically
Sure.
I found that the different AIs produce different types, like levels of good amount of code for different programming languages. Like, for example, I found that Copilot actually produces pretty darn good code for VBA, whereas like Gemini and ChatGPT won't be as good in VBA code. But like
Right.
if you want web code, I swear Gemini has some of the best JavaScript and web code I have seen. So it's not just about using any one of these. It's about what these each one is sort of geared toward too in a lot of ways. So
Yes.
I just want to throw that out as well.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. There is no one best for every language. That's for sure. So one of the things that I had to do with ChatGPT was build this coding standards. And no, notice here, I had to tell it that, or it would have one try catch around the whole procedure. Once I put this down and highlighted this, it wasn't until I highlighted this, and all of a sudden I came back and every single one of the new stuff, when he would generate a new function and it went out to SQL Server, this was done. So I generated this document and I have Python coding standards. I've got SQL Server standards. I've got, all this stuff that I need to tell it for this Python thingy that I'm doing. And when I start any session out here in where's chat? When I go into chat and I go into my analysis program, the very first thing I do is I click the plus button and I add photos and files, and I come back over there, and this is, I upload my documents to it. If I don't do that, I don't get good code. If I don't do that, I get the runaround. I get all kinds of stuff. And it took me a long time to figure this stuff out. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So, but I will come into my docs, and I will just say, okay, I need you to take this and watch what it says when I upload this thing. It scans through it. It tells me what it is, and and there's several of these things. If I'm working on a Python script, I will upload the supervisor script. I've got a script now that is a supervisor that launches workers. So it's multi-threading. It's anyway. Yeah. And so I'll upload those two Python scripts to it. And that tells it what it was doing. If I don't do that, it's trying to go back through, like, all of these things are chats and they're long because I've been working with this thing for 2-3 weeks now. So each one of these things will be hours of conversation. Another thing you guys might not know is that if you go into one of these things, you can tell it, hang on a second. I'm trying to find my chat thingy. Anyway, you can tell it delete all of the graphics files that I gave to you. Because, as I mentioned, I'll cut and paste the error messages and push it up, cut and paste, push it up, cut and paste. After about 20 minutes, it's dog slow. As soon as I tell it delete all those old graphics files from that cut and paste thing, boom, it's back fast as you can't believe. What's going on, I think, is that goes into the context window. And then every time it wants to do something, to talk to me about something, it's going through those old graphics files, looking for information to help it understand how to answer me. So by telling it, get rid of those things, it doesn't have to go through that anymore. And my chat window is fast again. So these are just tricks that I learned, tips that I learned for ChatGPT. I have no idea whether they work for any other AI model, but
Well, I know that Claude prefers text files as over graphics and documents, but I'm using the free version, so I'm not sure if that's across all their versions. But I was working on something today and I asked it if it would rather have the text or the document, and it wanted the copy paste text.
and that's okay. But the problem is, let's take those error that I was getting with PyCharm, right? The red squigglies mean something, and when you cut it out and you paste it in as text, you don't see the red squigglies. So you have lost the context of this thing was the error message, was the error problem. And chat, anyway, can look at those pictures and go, oh, yeah, those squigglies, and it talks to me. Yeah, those squigglies mean this. And it'll go in and attempt to fix. Usually it does attempt to fix whatever those squigglies are. So, yeah, I understand. And I paste stuff in just text as well. And in particular, like those Python scripts, I'll just cut the whole script out and dump it up there, and it'll say, "Oh yeah," and then the next one, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
But there are times when showing it a picture of something, like a directory structure, I'll show it what directory I'm putting stuff in. It'll tell me, "Oh, you didn't put something in this correct directory," and I will cut and paste the directory with the file that it's telling me isn't in that directory, and it'll go, oh yeah, oh okay. So there are times when there's just no substitute for a picture.
Did anybody else have any questions about or comments, observations about where AI might fit in your world?
I was wondering if anybody knows of a free API you can call to generate like a text chat over the web, basically like a REST call or something like that. If anybody knows that, there isn't a free one for pretty much anybody, which is crazy. I'm surprised by that.
What would you use that with?
Well, the idea is that you could just call it from any web service, right? I would love to be able to call it from, say, an Access add-in or one of my, .NET applications where I could just call out to ChatGPT, ask it a question, and have it return text to me or code or something like that I could either present to the user or somehow process that data.
Okay, you write it yourself.
Yeah.
With ChatGPT.
Well, but that's the problem. There's really no free APIs, which is why I'm asking if there's if anybody knows of a free API.
No, but create one using AI.
Well, yeah, you could create your own AI language model to do that, certainly. And actually, I don't know if I told you guys this, but years ago when this stuff started getting big, I built an image generator even before Microsoft Designer and all this stuff, and it works pretty good, but it does take a lot of time. Like on my individual computer, just to run the model for like a 1024 by 768 picture would take about an hour actually to generate that on my local computer because you don't have the parallel processing power. So that can be done, but then you have to also have the processing power to be able to do that, right? So I could certainly have use one of the free models out there and set up a web service to do that. But then now I have to have a server farm of servers to be able to process those queries. That's why I was hoping to have a free one from one of the big guys that somebody knows.
Well, you know that you can run large language models locally on your machine.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying, John. Basically, a couple of years ago, I built an image generator when DALL-E first came out, actually. But that's what I'm saying is it takes an hour to run those, right? It wouldn't be really usable. The text generation would still take some serious time. I don't know if you notice when you type it into the website, even it takes time to get that answer back, right? It's like slowly processing the answer, and that's the computing power that's required to do that. And like people like Microsoft and Google and all these guys, they basically do it by because they have these these data centers with massive parallel processing systems, right?
Well, that's another related subject to which.
Yeah, that's why they have. Yeah, that's why they have to. That's why they're restarting all these nuke plants in the United States, right? Because they need power.
That's
to
exactly what
run these AI systems.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Jeff. And
I know, because we've had this conversation a little bit.
I'll wait for the after recording session to share my thoughts on that, which is kind of interesting. How many of you who are here tonight are actually using AI regularly? Because you can just raise your hand, use the hand raising tool and indicate whether you're using AI regularly or not.
And how do we raise our hand?
There's a react at the bottom of the screen with a little heart, and you can.
Well, yeah, but I've got about 16 different things up here. Hang on a second.
We know you do. You're doing it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
I use it every day and have for about 2 months now.
Yeah. So it looks like probably about half of us. So is anybody motivated to try?
That is not using it every day. Is there anyone not using it that's motivated to try and use it?
It's hard to say. I know some people are just not interested in it, and I respect that. I like to say, but my conversation earlier with my friend today, I was surprised in a way, but not so much surprised because he's always been on the leading edge of development, but he was very adamantly opposed until it became clear that the business that he works for was not going to survive under the old model. AI is the only path that they can see forward, or the most likely path that they can see going forward. So kind of an interesting dynamic.
I think everybody should use it every day and practice with it, try it, learn new things with it. It really does speed things up, especially like web searches, that kind of stuff. Use it. Stay relevant.
I use it for a bunch of different things.
Yeah. Steve just posted an interesting thought. Steve, would you like to comment on that? And maybe we can figure out how to address that.
Steve Chappelle, I find the thought quite daunting. I'm a novice.
Even Steve is a contemporary. He's a former Access MVP as well. So Steve, what would you need to get started?
Okay, I don't really know what it would take. I guess to have a specific. As I said, I use various AI-based searches now, rather than doing the usual kind of Google or Bing or whatever. To just ask basic questions to get information. So in terms of using AI to do anything like the kinds of things that people have been talking about in this webinar, I would have to have a specific project or a specific purpose that I thought that I could benefit from, rather than doing it the old way, I guess. And as I said, I find it a bit daunting because it seems like, I'm a new person to the whole world of AI. It seems like and John said it took him weeks to figure out how to ask the right questions. I'm probably paraphrasing wrongly there, but that's the message I got. And so it does seem like quite a big step to take to actually start using AI beyond the basics.
Yeah.
Well,
You go ahead, John.
so one thing that we could do is just demonstrate how to use chat. I mean, I don't know any of the other ones. So, but if you're seeing my screen now, this is Chat GPT, and I have a VBA and chat project. That's for tonight. That's this thing. And I've got a stock analysis, and I'm writing a book with chat for my daughter who has disabilities, intellectual disabilities. She's 22 years old and operates at about a 6-year-old level. So I'm writing a book for her. Again, I'm not writing the book. I'm having chat write the book. I drive a truck for a living now. I'm driving down the road talking to the voice chat GPT. It knows that I'm writing a book. And so I'll say chapter 1, Allie and her dog. And I just put out ideas of what I want the chapter to be about. And it writes a chapter for me. And I can't read it because I'm running down the road, but it does all this stuff and it puts it in a document, a DOT file, like a LibreOffice file. And boom, I've got a chapter for a book that I'm writing for my daughter. So you can see all kinds of things that I've been doing. I bought a boat a long time ago and I started writing a story about sailing home, 2 week sail home, and I got about half of it written and stopped. And this was 10 years ago. So the other day I found it and went back and I just pasted it in to chat and it goes, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool, man. Let's make a book out of that. Why don't you finish writing this?" It's prompting me to do that. So, so one of the things that I do is I've got all of these things are projects. These folders are projects. So figure something out that you want to do. It's like learning to program, back in the beginning when you were learning to program. What did they tell you? Find something you want to do and write a little program to do that. Except in this case, you're finding something you want to do and you're using ChatGPT to do that.
One of the things that I have used it for, Steve, that might be a kind of an entry point is I will give it a function or a chunk of code that is existing and say, and tell it, this is what I'm working with. I want to, well, here are the things that I want to consider. One, I want to make it more consistent. Make sure all the naming convention is right and describe whatever other changes. It does this, but I need it to also do this. Or I'm having a problem getting, well, the one that I was working on yesterday was a race condition where I was running code, but one part of it was executing too soon. So I was getting results that were representative of a step that had happened before. And I just said, here's the situation, here's the problem, help me resolve it. And then we went through probably, I'm going to say, at least 3 iterations before we got something working. But each time it gave me back a proposed solution, I would look at it and either say, this is not a valid syntax, this doesn't work, I know it's not going to work, fix this. And it would apologize profusely and offer a fix. And then I would say, Okay, great, but it does everything up to here, but it doesn't do this. So in that cycle of feeding it back the same code and asking for iterative improvements, I ended up with something that I probably wouldn't have even been able to accomplish over a period of time. So I would, that to me is maybe an entry point for the kind of, for that learning experience. Just take something that you already have and say, fix this or improve it or enhance it or extend it to cover this case that it doesn't cover now. And that iterative process, that dialogue is where you're going to get the aha moment is, oh, I can ask it to do this now. Take this code that you've written and turn it into a UDF.
Hey, John, you
So
don't happen to have like a cheat sheet or something on using ChatGPT, do you? I think that would also be helpful for people. Like if you had like a list of all the common like commands and the way you set things up. I know there's some of these out there. You don't happen to have one by chance?
no, I have things that I've done for each one of my projects, little things, but for coding, what I found was that you really need for chat GPT, you really need to build documents with exactly the way you want stuff done, you know, and do that. But I just wanted to show you this little book. I wrote this stuff running, chat wrote this stuff running down the road for me. You know, I said, oh, let's write a little chapter about, and when I got back, this was written. And then I went out and used an AI to generate these pictures for it and put them in there. But all the text here is just ChatGPT writing little stories for me. And the point here really is that ChatGPT knows everything. Chat can be your accountant. It can be your business analyst. It can be whatever you want it to be. And one thing that everybody tells you you need to do is when you start talking to chat, you tell it, I am writing a program to do this. I need you to act as a database analyst. And we're going to write SQL code to do these things. You're my database analyst. You're my Python programmer. You're my et cetera. And you need to tell it that. And I think you need to probably do that for any of the AIs because that's setting the AI up as I'm going to be a marketing, the head of marketing or something. I want you to be my head of marketing and tell me how to market this business that I'm trying to set up. I need you to write a business plan for me. So you tell it how to come at you rather than just, can you write a business plan for me? Just stuff like that, Tell it what role it's playing in your little pretend company, and then start telling it what you want it to do. So I think that's just about probably the most important thing that you can get out of tonight's conversation is if you're going to use these things, be specific about what you want it to do for you instead of just one sentence, write a line of code to do this. You're my VBA programmer, not my Python programmer. You're my VBA programmer. I'm working in Microsoft Access. I'm going to be automating Excel. I need you to work with me to build a database using VBA code that automates Excel. And once you've told it that, you've set the stage for it helping you to do that kind of job.
Thanks, John. That's an eye-opening little exposition that you've most made there. That's completely put my mind at a different level of understanding about all this. So thank you for that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that's referred to as prompts. Isn't that the term they use? Is becoming
Yes.
a prompt engineer?
Yes, prompt engineer. And you can go out and and find all this stuff on YouTube. I mean, that's pretty much where I got this stuff. And somebody told me that on YouTube. Somebody told me that. Tell it exactly how you want it to come at you, what role you want it to play, and be specific.
In fact, there
And
are AI tools out there for engineering prompts. That's what I was sort of saying about the cheat sheet too, is it's like how you say it's in the way you ask it things. You can give it certain structures and say things a certain way so that it will return things in a certain way to you. And one of those things I've seen is these people have generated AI prompt generators. So you go out there and tell it you need a prompt that does something like this, and it will generate a whole giant prompt that you can then feed to an AI like ChatGPT that will give you theoretically what you want in a better way.
right. Yes. So I don't know if it was before the meeting or not, but my phone has an AI that is Google's AI, right? And I drive a truck. So I'm not allowed to touch my phone. I press a button on my headphone and this AI pops up for me. And it says, "Can I do something for you?" Or, and I'll tell it dial a number or something. But all of a sudden I'm going, well, I should talk to this thing because I had been talking to ChatGPT going down the road. There's a voice ChatGPT and I was using it and it's powerful. And so I started talking to this thing on the phone and I said, "Tell me about mitochondria." Literally, "Tell me about mitochondria." And it gave me it's the powerhouse of the cell and blah, 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 and 3 sentences later it was done, silent. And I said, "Okay, but I want a little more in-depth information about it." 4 sentences later, it was done. And then I said, "I need you to talk to me as if I am a junior in college, a chemistry major. You're my research assistant, and I need to learn about mitochondria." And boom, it flooded me with stuff I did not understand. Because I'm interested in mitochondria. I mean, they're fascinating things, and I wanted to learn about it. And it was nothing. It was like I was an eighth grader or something. And then I told it that, and all of a sudden it started talking to me as if I was a junior in high school in a chemistry class learning about mitochondria, or biology class learning about mitochondria. I mean, detailed stuff. So prompt engineering is a thing.
What should we be cautious about?
My first thing is don't believe everything it tells you because um, I was talking before the meeting. I had it lock up my computer tight. We were working on this Python thing with a supervisor launching child processes, and it said, "Okay, run this thing and type this thing in." And I typed it in, and it started launching child processes. And I think what happened was it was supposed to launch 8, and it just kept launching them one after another, after another, and after another. And I've got an 8 core with 16 threads and 64 gigs of memory on my laptop. All of my cores were maxed out. There wasn't an inch of room at the top, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't click the little button down in the corner I couldn't do anything. I ended up powering off the machine because I could not do anything. So you got to be careful, and just when it's telling you something, believe it, test it, work with it, and 80% of the time it'll be something useful and 20% of the time it won't. And you gotta know enough to be able to do something useful with what it gives you. Python programming, I'm not a Python programmer, but I've been a programmer for 30 years, all kinds of languages. So I look at the Python and I can see, oh, okay, there's squigglies there, and it's telling me so I look at it and half the time it just works. I can run down through the code that it's written and go, "Oh, okay, that's what it's doing. Oh, okay, that's what it's doing." Sometimes there's this code, and I go, oh, don't have a clue what that is. They're advanced things for building AI models, and I'm a little bit wary of the next step in my project where I'm going to be building a neural network. But I'm talking to it. How many layers? What's the first layer? The first layer is going to have 40 neurons in it. And she's saying, well, the next layer, you might want about 100 neurons. And the second layer after that, about 50. And then the output layer, we're going to have 16 outputs. And then I asked her, well, what's the size of that on my disk? And it starts going into this times this times this times this, and that's the number of this kind of thing. So I can look at that information. I'm just talking to it. I'm just getting it to tell me stuff. And I'm learning as I go, but I couldn't write any of that myself if I wanted to, If it can't do it and I can't make it work, it's not going to happen. But I think I can make it work. I think Chat and I can make it work.
So I guess we'll hear when you're successful down the road here pretty soon.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm excited to get into the neural network stuff. That's really cool technology, and I understand it a little bit, and I'm understanding it more and more as Chat talks to me and tells me about it, how it works, and the parameters and all that stuff, and the weights and biases. It explains it, and if you don't quite understand it, just tell it to dumb it down a little bit, and it dumbs it down a little bit. And when you understand that, you ask it for more information. What I've discovered is that for my little neural network, I am going to have about 4,000 parameters, which is not very much. It's going to be a total file size of 40 kilobytes. And I can train that thing with 100,000 stock symbols coming off the stock exchange and history and stuff like that, But if I want a different model, if I want 32 inputs and 100 in the first level and 50 in the second level, or 100 in the second level, it explained to me, well, that's going to be 11,000 parameters, and it'll be a file size of 250,000, for storing all the data, the pieces and parts for that neural network. So, I mean, it's fun for starters.
Yeah.
And I'm learning stuff.
I'm going to ask one more question. We've gone a little over an hour, and I'm sure we can go for a little bit longer, but I'm going to ask one more question. Are we all going to be put out of work? Those of us who are still working, are we all going to be put out of work by AI?
If I don't learn how to use AI, I would be put out of work. Not by AI. What the common wisdom is, AI is not going to replace me. A person who knows what I do and learns AI will replace me. And I think that's the truth. A programmer who knows AI, a programmer who doesn't know AI is going to be put out of work by a programmer who does know AI. But
that's maybe not necessarily true, but I would say what it really is going to do is increase the productivity of anybody who uses it. That's where I feel like it does it.
Well, yes, I agree. But I think what's going to happen at that point is the company that hires me and I don't know AI and my productivity is here, and they hire this programmer who does know AI, he's doing the same thing. He's getting the same kind of work done, but he's got 5 times as much work done in the same period of time. And they're going to look at me and go, well, either learn AI so you can be as productive as he is, or find another job.
Yeah, but they still need people to run those AIs to do that piece, right? They still have to have that person in there who's interacting with the AI to make sure that things are getting done.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, it's going to really, I know people think it's going to lose jobs. I think it's going to add jobs because now there'll be so many more people that can do so much more because they can use AI to help them get to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do before, right? For example, I can now make beautiful pictures. I'm not a digital artist. And this is one of the reasons why I tried to build my own language model in the beginning to do images for me because I'm not good at it. And I can try to make artwork, but even when I do my best work after spending, months on something, it comes out like crap, in my opinion. So if I can tell the AI to give me something approximately, and it comes out with this beautiful picture, and it's great, it's good enough to work in my app, that just saved me, months of work or having to hire somebody, and it made me that much more productive in getting my app done. Right. And that's how I was able to basically, make those two apps really quick because I was just able to generate the pictures I needed for that stuff. And I actually already knew the code. So, those two apps I generated in 1 month between last session and the one before that was basically helped by AI. I wouldn't say it did the whole thing. I did most of it, but it did help me in a few little critical places like making the images.
And these are pictures that I created using Comfy UI. I just did English language things, universe, chaos, just a couple of words. And these are pictures that it generated using that program and what I told it to,
we
in
can't
a
see
little
we
prompt.
can't see your images.
Yeah, you're not sharing
screen.
your screen.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And what happens is I give it a prompt, a horse riding, something, and it goes, okay. And then I tell it, give me 5 pictures with this prompt, and it'll say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, But I didn't draw any of these things. I just prompted this thing and back it comes. I've got some really pretty ones down here of an Indian girl with a dream catcher.
And if you want to try making really beautiful pictures for free, try designer.microsoft.com. Those images are amazing, and you can use it for free for X number of credits per month. So it's like, I don't know, I think you get 20 credits or something like that, but you can generate about 50 images for free per month.
Yeah.
I put it in the chat, link to it. Whoops, that's not a great link. But I put it in the chat.
Oh, well, I used this application right here to generate those little pictures you saw in my book, except I told it to make it cartoon-like instead of photoreal. So, and it takes a while. It takes probably 2 or 3 minutes for Comfy UI to start popping these things out. I mean, they're just beautiful, These, I said, I want a picture of a wolf looking over a lake, or I just did stuff like that, and some of them it's like, oh, that's cool, and some of them,
I'm going to share one here.
So okay, so I'm going to stop sharing again.
That was scary. I was kicked out of the meeting somehow.
That was weird.
Yes, fortunately, it's still recording, and everybody else was here. I don't know how I did that, but I'm going to see if I can share this screen here. Because it's one that I did with AI. Okay.
While we're waiting for that, if anybody's interested in graphics, that Comfy UI, COMFY UI, allows you to do those pictures that I just did.
Yeah.
And you can find out all about it on YouTube.
Comfy. This one I did with Chat. I think it was ChatGPT that did this one as the illustration for this. Can you see the hybrid application?
Did it put the Access logo in there?
The prompt I used was, I want to monitor with an Access application showing a table and a jury. Now, if you count the jurors,
that seems like a violation of copyright, actually, to me, because it is an Access, it is a Microsoft logo, right? And if they got that, that means they scraped that data from the Microsoft website or something like that, or on the web somebody else had posted, oh, this is the Access logo or something.
Yeah,
That's
but
that's interesting. That's interesting.
you may be right, but I don't think it's at the level of copyright violation that anybody's gonna.
Oh, I'm not saying it's a problem, but this is why these companies are suing each other like already, right? These big companies or people are suing ChatGPT saying, "Oh, you scraped our website and took our information without our permission, and we can prove it by these are the results it gives." And it gives like a logo or gives something that indicates their specific site, right? And then that's how they're suing on these things.
Yeah. On the other hand, that logo, the Access logo is going to appear on any Access installation on a desktop. So
Yeah, I've never been able to get like it to generate an actual exact logo of another company on pretty much any of them. But there's so many on these days on most of them you can generate images. You can do it through Google, you can do it through ChatGPT, you can do it through Copilot. Actually, just go to Designer, which is the link I put in. But there's the sites that are just dedicated to it, like MageSpace or Night Cafe that you can generate images for free on Night Cafe. Uh, Dolly, there's just a pile of them you can do all for free.
well, are we at a point where we can turn off the recording and just chat for a minute? Any
Well,
other comments about AI?
I'm definitely done.
Okay.